Okay, good morning, nearly afternoon, or whatever time it is in your place. My name is Bernardus, and today we will be talking about the projects I created throughout the week. And before you ask, why do I sound so angry? It's because my webcam died in the middle of my last recording. And yes, this is the second time I recorded this video. And you wanna know how long the video I recorded was? 40 minutes. I talked for 40 minutes and it's not even good. So I'm gonna re-record this one, and I'm gonna be quick because man, I do have something else to do than record things twice, alright? So this is what I created, a simple Kanban board utilizing Analog and Angular ecosystem. I used Spring Boot, virtual threads, JDBC client, and JDBC template, Analog.js, and PostgreSQL. I forced a 2-second delay in front end, not SQL service, debouncing. I worded that one wrong. Build a public Kanban board, bridge the gap between Java 21 performance and Analog.js. This is the postmortem that we'll get into later. So there's only two things we need to care about right now. That is the resources and the Java. Yes. For the resources, I only edited the file. I added schema.sql, which means this will be create a task, title, description, status, position, create a task, and update that. This is basically just my properties. And yeah, I shared with you my URL, username, and password because this is a local host. What are you gonna do about it? So yeah, let's get into the entity. Okay, so you may notice that I have a different package or directory structure. It is because I just recently discovered that modern Java use package by feature. So that's why right here I am using the Kanban directory, Kanban package. This is package actually if you open it in IntelliJ, but because my RAM nearly died, so yeah. This is the entity. This is just a direct replica of the schema.sql. I used long and integer instead of the primitives because they can handle null better. That's it. After entity, we have DTO. This is the DTO for patch update. For updating status, you only need the status, the position, and the ID. For creating requests, you only need title and description. For singular update, you actually only need title and description, but I forgot to remove it, but yeah, that's basically it. And this is for the list of tasks. You only need the summary without the description to save bandwidth. So entity and DTO are finished. Next, we get into the repository. This is a repository, and I use JDBC client and JDBC template. And only now I realized that this is the dependency injection at its finest. Why? Because inside here, inside your entire Spring Boot app, you will only have one instances. Everything is a singleton. This is a bean, yes, a bean. Spring Boot will handle it. So there will be only one, and because you use dependency injection, when the Spring Boot instantiate your repository, it will pass in what you requested. This is basically the usual. We query from the database, but by position, because the Kanban board has position, alright, to the task summary class. This is find by ID. This is create. We need the position, right? And there's a reason we use position. This will be handled later by the service. This is a singular update for updating description, but this is the batch update. As you can see right here, we prepare the SQL statement first, and then we use the JDBC template to do batch update. We pass in the command, we pass in all the data, and we pass in how many times do we need to do it by task.size. We take the argument, prepared statement, the SQL, and then we take the argument, which is every single task, individual task. We set string, we set integer, and set long. This will do batch update. So instead of doing multiple small requests to the database, you do one in one giant request. So your database will be bogged down by requests. Is this still working? As for the lead, this is just a lead, and this is get to do countdown. In the service, it's just the usual, but if you see right here, this return optional task because find by ID may not find it, and yeah, optional. Create task also optional long, because if the task is successful, will return the ID inside create. This is a singular update, but this update task just called the update repository declared. I'm sorry that I'm quite skipping many things because I don't know what to talk about, and 40 minutes talking really bogged down my throat. So let's get quick into the controller. This is the REST controller. As you can see, request mapping means that everything inside of this will be an extension of /API/task. Cross origin to allow our local host to talk to our backend. This is get mapping, the index. We find all. This is find singular by ID. If it exists, we send OK to the front end. If it not, we send not found. For post mapping, 201 actually requires you to send the location of the data. So this is why I need to use URI from current request path ID build and expand to URI to send it to the front end. This is put mapping for editing singular one, and this is for batch updating for positions, and this is for ID/ID singular update. This is for delete. Yes, and that's basically it for backend. I need to drink again, alright? And let me check. Yes, it is still working, and I hope it doesn't stop right now. Moving to the front end, I used Analog.js. I encountered some unfamiliarity while going into this, but overall it's nice. So this is the components. You should have put it inside app, but I didn't know why I put it outside. I didn't know whether you should put it inside app or not, but correct me if I'm wrong. This is the layout. As you can see, this is the decorator that marks that this is an Angular component. I don't know what standalone actually do in Angular.js, but I think it is required in Analog.js. So yeah, the selector is basically means that okay, to call this function, to call this component inside another component, you use the selector, and this is the template. We export class app header. Okay, so Analog.js is a meta framework for Angular.js. That's why you have pages directory. This is everything inside of here will be a directory, but a folder that is inside a parenthesis will be used for grouping, and it won't be counted as a route. I use parenthesis home.page.ts because this is the route. This will be about the layout. I use the layout, app header, and router outlet. Inside the home, we have index.service.ts, we have index.server.ts, index.page.ts, and .html. First of all, we need to take a look at the index.server.ts. This is where your load function should be located. What is load? Analog.js exists so that you can do server-side rendering. Okay, a bit of an introduction to Analog.js. Angular actually, Analog.js follows the isomorphic model. Instead of you needing to mark a component as client or server, a component is always both. it is server component in the server and a client component in the client. So in the client it's only HTML, but once it's sent to the client, the HTML hydrates and it turns into a single page application. So this is why you need to populate your HTML with load, so that when you load it, it'll automatically have data. The second one is service. This is the similar to Spring Boot, where you have a service and a repository. This part is the one that talks to the backend. Remember dependency injection? It also exists in Analog and Angular. So we inject HTTP client to Kanban service and we declare the API URL. We create a local task signal, and this is for read only for your component to read. This is status update stream for Debouncer, and we initialize debounce stream. But that's for later. This is because this is used for update. This is initialized data so that our Kanban has a data from the server. This is the get a specific task. As you can see right here, it set a signal so that when I call get task, it not only fetch the data, but it also set the data for the front end. So one stone, two birds. This is for update task, update the positions. We take the data first. We change the UI first before creating a request. We have target task. We find the current task. If the target task doesn't exist, we immediately return and we update the task up with the new status from here. And then we have an array for remaining tasks. This is the final task that will be sent to the front end later. We check if is it the same lane. If it is just reordering in the same lane, we take the current.filter, we check the status, where is it the new status, and then we create an array where this is only like the specific lane, is it to do, in progress, or etc, etc. We remove the old lane from where the old task used to live, and we append it to the new ID. Splice does that. In the current index, remove 0 and add the updated task right here. And then we append the final task. We add the current filter where the status is not, and yeah, we add the lane task. Const target lane task. This is used the remaining task. So every single task where it isn't the updated task, we update, and we add it to the new. Task. So remaining task where this is not the not the correct lane, and we add the edited lane, and then we set the local task to final task, and then we send it to the debouncer. This is the debouncer, right? So this will force a 2-second front end delay. So that you won't send multiple small requests to the backend. Instead, you will send one big request after 2-second delay, so that the backend only needs to update once. And once the data is updated, we take the local task data. Since it has already been updated, we use page payload. And for statuses, this basically just iterates through everything. It's just basically it push every single Kanban board to the batch payload and send the data to the batch payload put. So inside this put request, you will send every single task to the backend so that it'll be updated immediately. Why like this? Because you can be more efficient, but I just can't handle it, man. You need to check what lane has changed, and then you need to only send the affected lane. And when I think about it, the network cost is far less worth it than the CPU cost, I think. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but velocity over complexity. Dalam. Okay, so this is just basically send an HTTP request to delete. We remove the deleted task. Yes. Next, we have index.page.ts. This is the one who's scanned to create a page. I create the selector app home. It is a standalone, and in Angular you import what you used. You only what you use: CDK list, task container, task sheet, task update. We inject to signal. We inject the load so that the data will be there. Kanban service. We inject the Kanban service. My webcam died again. Okay, my webcam died again. I didn't know how many footage I lost. I literally recorded everything so that I can anticipate this happening. Okay, so with the constructor, we check the loader and we initialize the data for the Kanban. This is a signal using computed. We iterate through the data, and then from to the task in progress review task we filter it. This is unused redundant function, but the one used is this. When you have task summary or task summary, it opens the edit model. But if it is only true, then it is creation and then close. This is on card drop. On card drop, we pass in the data. We get the task that moves, and then the target status. If it is invalid, we immediately return, and then we send everything to the update task, and we trigger delete task. Let's go to the HTML. As you can see right here, this is a CDK list group. I have task container right here, right? This is basically CDK list groups, means that inside me there will be CDK drop list, and I am the group manager. Task container will pass in the string. We pass in the to-do task. Okay, when you get a value from input or signal, you need to call it like a function, because it is actually a function, and you need to call it to get the data. You wrap your field inside a bracket so that it'll get recognized. That this is a value. You will pass a variable or anything else but string. This is for input and this is for output, basically a meter. So yeah, this is what happened when you drop a card. This is what happened when this is a method to add a task, to delete, to edit. Task container. Yes, you declare it right here with the type. Oh, my parent just came. Alright, I'll stop the recording first. Okay, so my parents just come home, and yeah, let's continue. So this is the task container. You import what you need. Host. Okay, this is actually quite unique. Maps class properties to as elements for binding. I don't know what, but I can basically create a class inside this host, and it'll get implemented for every single one, the same as you implementing it here or implementing it right here. But I guess this one is preferred, but I don't know why. Okay, so we pass in the title, the container, right? This is the container, so this is to do, progress, this is the ID, and this is the CDK drop list data. The data is everything inside task, and this is the CDK drop list drop. When drop, we emit the event so that it'll change. We'll change the data. It'll trigger the reordering array via the CDK, and we loop through the task for the card. Again, input, output. So when you click in a button, it calls the function emit edit task, but you need to do emit, alright, because output is still should I say it? I don't know why. Basically, you need to do emit, alright. We delete task, everything happens inside card, but it get passed down through index page.ts. This is basically what happens to every single container. Now we need to get into the below section. This is the section. You actually see the pointer events none. Yeah, the webcam is active. Okay. So everything inside this Kanban board is actually that section. It is located Z50, so that it is on top of everything. But because of pointer event none, I can still click on this one right here. Current task, I declare a variable with the selected task, so the type gets static and not modified in the middle because of signal. If it is just a creation, we passed in task update method post and the ability to close it. If it is editing or detail, we passed in task sheet. We passed in the ID, title, description, status, and the ability to close. This is pointer events auto because we need this to be clickable. We first go into task sheet. We check if it is edit. We toggle edit. This is input output. This is because this single container will be like the decider between whether you want to see the detail or edit. If it is not editing, we pass into task detail and this just show the information. If it is task update is also used for creation and editing. So there's a reason why I have handle submit right here. Okay, a bit of an intermission. You should actually use the server-side form, but when doing so, I encountered some problem. Read form data was deprecated, and when I pass in the event page server action, it just doesn't work. So that's why I fell back into the row for HTML form. So when I submit the title description, when I pass in the title description, no. Okay, I'll submit. It grabs the data, form data, using the row JavaScript. We check if the method is post. If it is method, we pass in based on our DTO without status. If it is edit, we pass in the status, and we decide the URL will go through. We use the built-in fetch method. We pass in the URL, and then we pass in the method, the headers, and the payload, the body. We check if it is okay, task is successfully, and we reload the window because this is a form update. And if it's not, that's basically it for my front end and back end, and let's get started into showing it off. Please do not die in the middle of my recording. So we can do task creation. Let's say eat lunch, eat broccoli. We create, wait for some times. Alright, eat lunch. I can read, I can create already. I can read the list, and I can read the detail. I can update, I can move this one around with the debouncer, and it'll just sync one, sending task to Springboard successfully there. I can update, and I can update the detail as well. I can eat lunch right now, eat broccoli right now. I can update, it'll get updated, and I can delete. And that's basically it. Okay, my webcam. So now let's get into the post-mortem. Course issues still exist as browser default restrict outside requests for safety. That's why in my Spring Boot I use cross origin. In modern Spring Boot we use package by feature, which I also implemented in Angular. Analog.js. I learned about how we need DTO in Java. Yes, before this we used model, but now we used a specific DTO package, as Java is a strictly typed language, so we need to map a DTO to a coming request. I learned about JDBC template and how powerful it is that we can execute multiple SQL commands in one go to avoid multiple input-output to DB. Okay. A single method in the repository should only do one thing. Server is the orchestrator between these commands. Controller should only handle incoming requests and call the appropriate service method. I learned about Angular structure and how my React and Next.js habit of curly braces variable everything a lot. As you can see, we used brackets for value and we use parentheses for setters or function. You don't want to know how many times I slipped this one up. Routing inside a parenthesis doesn't affect the routing, you only have to group features up. And about probe spacing, this is what I called the incoming brackets, and the output parentheses must be called like a function. Yes, input/signal, because they are a function, and calling parentheses, it's like calling a function that returns the value. It's only now that I realize we only need server-side fetching, because we need to populate the website with data. Once it goes into the client, it's server single-page application. Unlike Next.js, we can use signal inside a server component. That's because Analog.js follows isomorphic model like Next.js, where there is only HTML on the server, but once given to the client, HTML will hydrate, becoming a single-page application and giving a better developer experience overall. I love the structure of Analog.js, but when I developed this application, I didn't install the Angular live service, so I didn't use any IntelliSense and suffered because of it. Yeah. We should have used server-side form again, but I encountered a problem. So yeah, that's basically it for today. Before my webcam give up again, I'm gonna close this one. So yeah, I thank you for watching. I'm sorry that this is rushed. My voice nearly give up. That's not a valid reason, isn't it? Okay, so basically, thank you for watching. I, Bernardus, signing off. See you next week.